Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we created the human being min nutfa amshaj nabtalihi. So this is a very interesting verse in Surah Al-Insan. It's one of the ishkalat in tafsir because the nutfa is singular. But the amshaj, which is a sifa here of the nutfa, is plural. So mashij is it's multicolored. It's something that has a cloth that's mashij. It's woven, interwoven. So there's a warp and woof to it. So amshaj is mixed. So it's a nutfa mixed. I really think genuinely that this ayah is one of the great miracles of the Quran, because I think it's clearly indicative of the zygote, which is the mixing of the male and the female genetic material. And it's very interesting that the word, and I don't know why they did this, but the word in modern Arabic for the genetic material is the same word that is used here. And I don't know if they did that purposefully, or is that just merely a linguistic coincidence? Or if it is, then it's clearly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like Imam Malik was asked about the porpoise. Porpoise, it's called khinzir al-bahar, which means the pig of the ocean, because porpoise in Greek means ocean pig. And so, because it's got that snout, right, the porpoise. So they asked Malik, what he thought of it. Did he think it was permissible? And he said, Antum sammaytumuhu khinzira. You named it a pig. In other words, just because it has that name, I wouldn't eat it. So names are very interesting in that way. أي مختلطة من قوى أشياء مختلفة. So it's mixed from all these potentialities, from all these different things. ولكون العالم والإنسان متشابهين إذا اعتبرها قيل الإنسان عالم صغير. And from this point of view, that the world and the human being resemble one another, if one considers, if this is considered, then it's said that the human being is the microcosm, and that the universe is the great man, right? ولذلك قال الله تعالى ما خلقكم ولا بعثكم إلا كنفس واحدة. And for that reason, Allah said, your creation and your resurrection is like one nafs, كنفس واحدة. فأشار بالنفس الواحدة إلى ذات العالم. So he's saying that he's interpreting that to mean that the nafs al-wahida is the essence of the world. This one soul, this one is the essence of the world, because nafs can mean essence. So he's saying it's that العالم. ولما كان كل مركب من أشياء مختلفة يحصل باجتماعهن معنى ليس بموجود فيهن على انفرادهن كالمركبات من الأدوية والأطعمة كذلك في نفس الإنسان حصل معنى ليس في شيء من موجودات العالم وذلك المعنى هو ما يتخصص به من خصائصه التي يتميز بها مثله عن غيره من هيئات له كانتصاب رقامته وعرض الظفر وانفعالات له كضحك والحياة وفعل له كتصور المعقولات وتعلم الصناعات واكتساب الأخلاق والله أعلم. So then he says, when every compounded thing from all these diverse things, when you see that they are all gathered into يحصل باجتماعهن معنى ليس بموجود فيهن. So it's the whole is greater than the parts, the sum of the parts. That's what he's saying basically, is that when you see that, right, فيهن على انفراد, if you took them as parts, كالمركبات من الأدوية والطعمة, just like if you take medicine or food that is compounded. وكذلك في نفس الإنسان حصل معنى ليس في شيء من موجودات العالم. So the sum of the parts, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That's what he's saying. That put together, the human being is much greater than all of the sum of the parts that make up the human being. وذلك المعنى هو ما يتخصص به من خصائصه. And that's the meaning that is specific to him from those particularities that God has given that human being, التي يتميز بها مثله عن غيره, that distinguish him from others. من هيئة له, from all these different aspects to the human being. كانتصاب رقامة, like the fact that he's upright, that he has broad fingernails, and then also the passions that he's susceptible to, like risibility or blushing, modesty, or the actions that he's capable of, like conceptualizing intelligibles. So we actually have things that exist in our minds only, that don't exist in the extra. There's extra mental existence, but then there's wujud dhihni. So you have wujud khariji, wujud dhihni. So we can actually conceptualize intelligibles like numbers. So the numbers don't have a wujud khariji, right? Mathematics. There aren't numbers in the world really. They're intelligibles that are conceptualized by our minds. They're abstractions. And also learning all of the crafts and skills that human beings are capable of, and also acquiring good character. So this goes back to Imam Ali radiallahu anhu's famous statement, du'a'uka fika ولا تشعروا, وما تبصروا. دواؤك فيك وما تبصروا. The cure is in you and yet you don't see it. وداؤك منك ولا تشعروا. And the disease is from you and you don't feel it. وتحسب أنك جرم صغير وفيك انطوى العالم الأكبر. And you deem yourself an insignificant thing and yet in you the whole cosmos exists. So this is something that the Muslims understood early on. This is not a Greek philosophy. This is the microcosm and the macrocosm is something that Imam Ali articulated, and it's very clear from his istidlalat. So الإنسان تكون الإنسان شيئا فشيئا حتى يصير إنسانا كاملا. الإنسان يتكون أولا جمادا ميتا كما قال الله تعالى وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم وذلك حيثما كانت ترابا وطينا وصلصالا ونحوها ثم يصير نباتا ناميا كما قال الله تعالى والله أنبتكم من الأرض نباتا وذلك حيثما كان نطفة وعلقة ومضغة ونحوها ثم يصير حيوانا وذلك حيثما يتبع بطبعه بعض ما ينفعه ويحترز من بعض ما يضره ثم يصير إنسانا فيخصص أو يختص بالأفعال الإنسانية. So he says the human being begins from an inanimate substance. He begins from an inanimate substance. Allah says, "Kuntum amwata fa'ahyakum." You were inanimate, and we animated you. We brought you to life. So you were inanimate, mayyit, and we brought you to life. وَذَلِكَ حَيْثُ كَانَتْ تُرَابًا. And what he means there is that you were dirt, you were mud, you were soil rather. You were mud, and then you were the ceramic preparation. ثُمَّ يَصِيرُ نَبَاتًا. And then you became vegetative, that had growth. And that's what Allah means when He says, Allah أَنْبَتَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ. He caused you to grow from the earth. He caused you to grow nabatan. Nabat is vegetable. So we go through these stages. And this is very important because when we get to the end of the book, you're going to see that this is very important, these stages, that he's spending time on this because he comes to a profound conclusion at the end of this, which is really actually, it's so overwhelmingly stunning that it'll just give you a completely different perspective on why God has created us in these phases and stages and what God intends by it. So, and then he says, وَذَلِكَ حَيْثُ مَا كَانَ نُطْفَةً وَعَرَقَةً وَمُضْغَةً وَنَحْوُهَا. So that's the vegetative, that's biological life, and that's why even though the spiritual life has not come into you're in a vegetative life. So we were nabat, right? And then we go to the animal, and then we go to the spiritual, the immaterial, when we get our soul. So those are the phases that we go through. Allah has put us through these phases. So we were dead, just substance that was not biological life. So we were basically mineral, and then we became a vegetable, and then we become animal, and then we become human. So we go through these phases. And he said, ثم يصير حيوان, and then animal. وذلك من حيث يتبعه بطبعه بعض ما ينفعه. In that you follow by your nature things that benefit you. ويحترز من بعد ما يضره. So every animal that's healthy will look to secure its benefit and do what it needs to do to avoid harm. And that's why Allah says that the human is more astray than animals, because they don't look after their benefit. I was with one of my boys once many years ago, and this lady was smoking a cigarette, and my son had never seen smoke before. Like, he hadn't seen anybody smoke. So he was just staring in utter shock at seeing this woman smoke coming out of her mouth. And she looked at him and she said, "Don't you ever do this." Now that is not a good role model, right? Because somebody who's doing something and telling you not to do it, I mean, there's a contradiction there. But that's the human being. They will do things they know are harmful for them, whereas animals won't. So that's what he's saying there. ثم يصير إنسانا فيخصص بالأفعال الإنسانية. And then those things that make us human then become part of our, of our nature. وقد نبه الله تعالى على ذلك من مواضع كثيرة. So Allah has indicated this in many places in the Quran. Like when Allah said, يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في ريب من البعث فإنا خلقناكم من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم من علقة ثم من مضغة مخلقة وغير مخلقة لنبين لكم ونقر في الأرحام ما نشاء إلى أجل مسمى. So, O humanity, if you're in doubt about the resurrection, think about this. We created you from earth, and then from a zygote, and then from a embedded embryo, and then from this developing embryo that is formed and unformed. And then we, in order to clarify to you, and we have instilled in the wombs, made firm in the wombs, whatever we please, to a fixed term. And then Allah said, أَكَفَرْتُ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَكَ مِن تُرَابٍ ثُمَّ مِن نُطْفَةٍ ثُمَّ سَوَّاكَ رَجُلًا. Do you deny, do you negate, do you disbelieve in the one who created you from earth, and then from a zygote, and then made you a human being? فأول ما تظهر فيه قوة النمو الموجودة في النبات. So the first thing that manifests in us is the power of growth, vegetative growth, that you see in vegetables, in the vegetable world. ثم قوة النزاع الموجودة في الحيوانات. And then the next is this قوة of نزاع, right, which is the نزوعا إليه. There's a willfulness there that enters in from the animals. ثم قوة تناول الموافق. And then the power of getting what is pleasing, ودفع المخالف, and avoiding what one doesn't want. ثم الحس, and then sentience. ثم تخيل, imagination. ثم تصور, conceptualization. ثم تفكر, reasoning. ثم العقل, right? So thought, تفكر there would be thought, and then reason. ثم العقل, and then reason. فهو لم يصير إنسانا إلا بالفكر والعقل. So you only achieve your humanity once you get to that ability to think and reason. الذي فيه يميز به من الخير بين الخير والشر. That you can distinguish between good and evil.